All right, we had three quarterbacks of the rookie variety play on Sunday, but no Anthony Richardson, and he may need surgery and he might be out for a while. Boy, that's not great for the Colts and for Anthony. So hopefully he's able to get back sooner than perhaps we think. But in the meantime, Bryce Young played. That Panthers team was up 14-0 in the first quarter on the Dolphins. Called the game. They ended up getting their brakes beat off of them by the time it was all said and done. And then C.J. Stroud led the Texas Hill win over the Saints in Houston. So let's start here. I thought this was Bryce's best game. I don't even know if it's close. Didn't throw an interception, didn't have a fumble. The very first drop back took a sack because Ike Kwanu, God bless him, just whiffed on Bradley Chubb, and Bradley Chubb ran through the back of Bryce Young. Other than that, we continue to see throws down the field with anticipation. We can continue to see toughness in the pocket. I love the touchdown throw just over the outstretched hands of the underneath safety there in the back of the end zone. The arrow's pointing up in general on Bryce. I'm concerned about the owner's involvement. I'm concerned about Frank Reich having to continue to explain things away, him now giving play calling duties to Thomas Brown, which I'm excited to see. It feels like there's a lot of ancillary stuff going on, but in terms of Bryce, the football player, it feels like he's getting better.
Yeah, no, I thought this was his best game, especially the first half. In the first quarter, he came out like gangbusters in that touchdown to Thielen. It's called touch with velocity.
Oh, that's a good, yeah.
So he put touch on the ball, but enough velocity over that linebacker's head. And he was getting in and out of his progressions much better, looks much more comfortable, even though he's getting whacked still. No question about his toughness, no question about his athleticism to buy a second chance. Second half, I didn't think he played as well. But after coming off a 2-interception game against Detroit, no interceptions, took care of the ball. He continues to grow as a quarterback. You see some of the highlight type throws that he can make. And I think his education process will be continuing through the year. But I have no doubt he's going to be a very good quarterback in this league.
Hey, let me ask you something that they talked about leading up to this game. I don't know if Frank Reich said it out loud, but the reporters, the Panthers beat reporters were talking about it. They simplified the offense, quote unquote, for Bryce. What does that mean?
It means they're not giving them 22 different things to think about at the line of scrimmage, whether that's, okay, when you get up there, make sure you're calling all the protections, identifying the mic. That should be the center's job, especially for a young quarterback. And, okay, go to A to B, not A to B to C to D.
Gotcha.
And just making things so he can play fast and he doesn't have to think when he plays, and he can just go out there. I know A to B. Okay, that's elementary. I understand that. Then I can just play with my ability and not having to think.
Yeah, we saw that. And part of me wonders, why don't we just start there for a rookie quarterback and work our way up? But then we'll talk about C.J. Stroud in a second. Maybe just throw everything at C.J. and you felt comfortable with it and he can handle it, so you keep building on that. But before we talk about C.J., one more thing I wanted to mention. Stephen Holder, who covers the Colts for ESPN, but he covered Frank Reich in Indianapolis, and he tweeted this out last week. He said it was an open secret in the league that David Tepper, the owner of the Panthers, heavily influenced the quarterback choice in Carolina. They ended up taking Bryce. The assumption is that they wanted CJ. I had heard, like in March when we were doing our little pro day tours, that the Panthers were leaning heavily towards CJ over Bryce at the time. But then, things change. You never had to deal with this, but just in general terms, how do you deal with an owner that wants one thing that maybe the organization staff isn't necessarily in agreement with?
Well, the owner's the boss.
So you do what you're told?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you lay out all the options, you lay out the positives, the negatives, what's your reasoning, why you want to go this direction. But if the owner is that heavily involved and has the final say or the final call, then you go on board with it.
Yeah. And again, I'm just going on what I heard and what I read. And I love Bryce. Bryce was my QB1. He was your QB1. The issue, of course, is the size. I don't think his size has been a problem in terms of the way he's played. I mean, you could look like Anthony Richardson's out because he keeps taking hits. And I don't know if he would be any healthier playing behind this Panthers offensive line. But just something to note, something to keep an eye on. I'm glad Bryce is continuing to play better. And that was his best game by far. Now they just got to win a football game, because I don't think that Mr. Tepper has a lot of patience with all this losing. Someone who doesn't have to worry about the losing. CJ Stroud, Houston Texans. They continued to ball out. CJ was only, quote unquote, 13 of 27 for 199, 2 touchdowns. Did have his first interception, but CJ is so good that he threw an interception. It was a terrible interception. I don't know how he missed Zach Bond standing there underneath. But Zach Bond fumbled it, and they got the ball back. I mean, that's how good the Texans have been playing. Great touchdown in the end zone to Dalton Schultz. He could have had 3 touchdowns. Schultz had one go off his hands later in the game. But again, they won that football game. And I thought this was the first time this season he's looked a little uncomfortable, and the defense was able to get him off the spot. The Saints have a really good defense. But again, you come away out of this game with your rookie quarterback in week 6 feeling pretty good about his continuing ascension to being a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, no. And he came back and he responded with some great downfield throws, especially those deep crossing routes to Nico Collins. He has a great rapport with him. Tank Dell was out this game, I believe, with a concussion, so he didn't have him available. He was a little off to me on some of those outside hitch type routes, outside the number throws that he normally was. But I thought he played with poise and patience. To me, you can't equate to this, but Debo can. Is that okay? In our golf league, we have this double bogey pull. So you put $5 in. If you can go 18 holes without a double bogey, that you win the pot. Okay, and that pot grows because the guys I play with, no one ever goes. Every once in a while, you get a guy that just goes par bogey golf the whole time.
Wait a second. What's the gimme rule, though?
And no, you got to put everything out because
Okay.
there's money on the line. So to me, this was his double bogey. He finally got it out of the way because of hole 12 or 13, I'm sure Debo's starting to shake in his shoes a little bit. I could go bogey free here. And all of a sudden he gets his double bogey on 14, and then he goes back to playing again. So it was nice streak. It was great that he accomplished what he accomplished, but now not everybody's talking about that. Now he can just go out. He doesn't have to worry as much. Well, and like I said, it was a poor decision on the throw, but it was almost like I want to get it over with so I can get interception so I can move on in life.
And best case scenario, they got the ball, literally got the ball back.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I believe the New Orleans Saints at the time leads the league in turnovers or interceptions. So there was a lot of some of the other shows that I was doing for CBS. There was a lot of over and under. Is this because of the New Orleans defense? He finally throws his first interception because of the ball hawking secondary that they do have.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. That defense is for real. And they played a lot of man early on, and guys weren't getting as open as they were later. And then you had the runaways. You talked about Nico Collins running open. Dalton Schultz continues to build rapport with CJ. And CJ also had the second touchdown was to Robert Woods, where he came across the formation, looked left, wasn't there, and then whipped it right in the middle of the field to Woods there for his second touchdown. All right. Another inspiring performance by CJ. Bryce is on the up and up. And our guy, we saw the Senior Bowl and really did not look good at the Senior Bowl. Looked overwhelmed by being on the bigger stage. TYSON Bagent, D2 player out of Shepherd, I think Shepherd's University in West Virginia.
Yep.
Talked about him in preseason. Looked pretty good. Looked like a different player. Came in after Justin Fields hurt his wrist. And we'll see where we are on that as we get through the week here. In the third quarter, and his first pass, he ripped the ball to the left, a great throw on a flat route. Then, again, the offensive line just lost their minds. He got smoked, fumble 6, and that ain't exactly how you want to start things. But I came away pretty impressed with a young man with not a ton of experience at the high level, making some big-time throws. He has a big arm. He can make off-platform throws. Interception in the end. The ball came out funny. I don't think he got hit, but sometimes, and you rarely see this in the NFL, but when you try to throw a football too far, it can come out like a arm punt, and that's what that looked like. That sort of wrapped things up and as they were trying to win that football game. But overall, I feel encouraged by TYSON Bagent's performance.
It reminded me of him going out there, and he didn't care. I mean, not in a bad way, in a good way.
Yeah.
I'm just go out there,
nothing to lose,
play an NFL game. I'm going to go out there and just have fun. And it looked like he was having fun. There's no question about his athleticism. He was throwing some off his back foot, and made some really nice throws. I think the first 6 attempts after that flat route were all screens.
Yeah.
Trying to get the ball out of stands. Some of them went in the dirt. And then the most disappointing thing was you have an opportunity to live for another down, and you throw that interception at the end of the game, and you're only down 6.
Right.
So poor decision, but hopefully he learns from that. But he was kind of watching him just as like he just wanted to go out there and play. It was almost like watching a little bit of street ball, where I understand he was doing what he was asked to do, going through the doing the plays that were called, but just feeling free and having fun. And whatever was going to happen was going to happen. But I'm not going to go down without a fight or without a swing. And that's kind of the impression I got. Now, ways to go, definitely. And now the D coordinators have some game film on him. It's going to be a whole different ball game uh, if he has to start next week. But no one really knew who he was, and I'm sure Minnesota didn't know who he was. I mean, you watch them, you don't even. You're in game 6 now or 5, and so you're not going to go back and watch preseason game because you're not anticipating him to come in and play. You know, you're doing all your game planning to try to keep Justin Fields under control because he's been on fire the last 2 weeks. So this kid comes in, and you're kind of getting a feel what this kid does basically on the fly. And but it was kind of fun to watch,
Yeah.
although it was ugly at times. But it'll be a different story, I believe, if he has to start next week.
So in your mind, that's the difference between the preparation teams were afforded when Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Aiden O'Connell started for the Browns and Raiders, whereas
They,
Tyson just came in.
yeah, they were announced there. They knew they were had an opportunity to potentially start.
And those young men had very rough afternoons.
Yes, they did. And I have a feeling that Bagent, if you want a French term, just like Mason Smith,
Maison Bagent.
uh, that may be a little different outcome on now that these defenses will watch this game and then they'll go back and watch all of his preseason tape if he's projected to be the starter next week.
Yeah, but credit to him. Like you said, he came out and was just slinging it, 10 of 14 for 83 yards. Did have that interception at the end, dictate that sack that was returned for 6.
Oh, yeah, he did. It's like I said, no holds bar. I got an opportunity to go out and play an NFL game. Well, I'm going to go out and just as Joe Webb told me before he went out in the first NFL game, I don't know what's going to happen, but some stuff is going to happen when I
Some
get out.
stuff happened. And look, I'll say this in Tyson's defense. The strides he made from January when we saw him in Mobile
Oh, yeah.
to the August when we saw him in preseason to last Sunday, those are enormous. So credit to him for that. And we'll see what happens should he have to start if Justin's going to be out for some time with that wrist injury.